Morning light pooled through the kitchen window of Claire Mitchell's small two-bedroom house in Portland, Oregon, stretching over the stack of unpaid bills spread across the scarred wooden table. Her coffee sat untouched, cooling beside a calculator that kept spitting out numbers she didn't want to see. "Mom, can I have cereal for breakfast?" 8-year-old Mason appeared in the doorway, dark hair sticking up in wild tufts, dinosaur pajamas slightly too short at the ankles. "Of course, sweetheart." Claire swept the bills into a pile, sliding them out of sight, and forced a smile. "Lucky Charms are in the pantry." While Mason rummaged in the cabinet, Claire's gaze drifted down the hallway to the spare bedroom. Once it had been her home office, back when she was married to David and still believed her freelance graphic design business would take off. Now it was just an empty room that swallowed heat and property tax, a storage closet she could no longer afford. Rain began its steady Portland patter on the windows. Claire made her decision. "Mason, honey," she said carefully, "how would you feel about someone staying in the extra room for a while?" He looked up from his cereal box, milk dripping from his spoon. "Like a sleepover?" "Sort of." She sat across from him. "More like a roommate. Someone who'll help us with the house expenses." "Will they be nice?" Claire's chest tightened. At 8, Mason already measured new people against the fragile safety of their little world. "I'll make sure of it, baby." That afternoon, while Mason was at school, Claire sat at her old laptop and crafted a Craigslist ad, trying to conjure the exact right kind of stranger, responsible but not intrusive, respectful of bedtime routines and Saturday cartoons. Quiet room for rent in cozy Portland home. Perfect for working professional or graduate student. Shared kitchen and living spaces. Family-friendly environment. $800 per month, utilities included. Available immediately. Serious inquiries only. She added photos of the room. Small but bright. A desk under the window. A view of the neglected garden. Her finger hovered over post for a long time before she finally clicked. By evening, her inbox was crowded with responses. She read through them with a meticulous eye. A grad student who seemed too young. A traveling salesman who'd rarely be home. A woman overly curious about Mason's schedule. Then she opened one that made her pause. "Hi Claire. I saw your listing and I'm very interested. I'm a freelance photographer. Recently returned to Portland after several years traveling. I'm quiet, clean, and respectful of shared spaces. I work mostly from home, but travel occasionally for assignments. I can provide references and first month's rent up front. Would love to discuss further. Best regards, oh." Heart. Something in the tone, professional yet warm, direct without pressure, stood out. Claire read it twice before replying to set up a viewing for the following evening. That night, as she tucked Mason into bed, he asked, "Mom, do you think the new person will like dinosaurs?" "I don't know, sweetheart." She smoothed his hair, heart twisting at the shadow of worry in his voice. "But I think they'll like you. Will you still have time for movie nights?" "Always." That, at least, she could promise. Nothing changes movie nights. When she turned out his light, the familiar weight of single parenthood pressed down. Every decision multiplied by 2 lives. Every risk balanced against Mason's safety. She'd spent 2 years rebuilding brick by brick after David left. Stability and routine had become her creeds. But the unpaid bills waited on the table, and stability, she reminded herself, sometimes meant taking calculated risks. The next evening, Claire found herself wiping already clean counters and straightening throw pillows. She changed outfits twice, finally settling on jeans and a blue sweater. Neutral, approachable. Mason was at her sister Sarah's for the night so she could meet the potential tenant without an 8-year-old commentary track. At exactly 7 p.m. the doorbell rang. Claire drew a deep breath, ran a hand through her hair, and walked to the door. Through the frosted glass, she glimpsed a blurred silhouette. Tall, lean, strangely familiar. A flicker of unease fluttered in her stomach. She opened the door. The world tilted. Standing on her porch, rain glittering on a dark jacket, was Olivia Hart. Her first love. Her first heartbreak. The woman who had walked out of their shared apartment 9 years ago and never looked back. Olivia's green eyes widened. Her mouth parted just slightly. "Claire," she breathed, voice roughened by surprise and time. Her hair was shorter now, falling in soft waves around her face. Fine lines bracketed her eyes, The kind you got from squinting into sunlit viewfinders in far-off places. But everything essential was the same. Claire's hand tightened on the doorframe until her knuckles went white. Olivia. For a suspended moment they simply stared at each other while the rain whispered against the roof. 9 years contracting into a single sharp instant. Claire was 27 again, watching Olivia's hands pack camera gear into cases, begging for an explanation that never came. I didn't know, Olivia said finally, voice steadier but still unsure. The ad just said Claire M. I never imagined it was you. Oh, Heart. Her eyes flicked to Claire's face. You go by Heart now? Professionally, Olivia said. She shifted the heavy portfolio bag on her shoulder. I can go. This was clearly a mistake. She turned, rain beating on her shoulders. Wait, Claire heard herself say. Olivia stopped, hope and caution warring in her expression as she glanced back. This was insane. This was the last person Claire should let into her house, her life, her son's orbit. This was also $800 a month, heat, groceries, rent paid on time. Mason's security. Come in, Claire said, stepping aside. Let's talk. Are you sure? Olivia asked softly. Claire was sure of nothing. Her heart rammed against her ribs, but Mason's tentative questions about money echoed in her ears. Come in, she repeated. Olivia crossed the threshold. The house seemed to contract around her. The air charged with old ghosts and something else, something alive. Her gaze snagged on the hallway wall. Photos of Mason at different ages, Claire with her arm around him, Mason with Sarah's kids. His backpack hung by the door, a pair of muddy sneakers neatly lined beneath. You have a son. It wasn't a question. Mason. Claire shut the door. He's 8. With my sister tonight. They stood facing each other in the narrow hall. Air weighted with unsaid things. Claire noticed details she'd never wanted to see again. The way Olivia still tucked her hair behind her left ear when nervous, how she held her camera bag close like a shield. The room's this way, Claire said, leading her down the hall. The spare room felt different with Olivia standing in it, measuring light and outlets in desk space with a professional's eye. It's perfect for a home office, Olivia said, setting her bag down. The light's incredible. I used it as my office before. Claire stopped herself before adding before I couldn't afford to. You're still doing graphic design? Part-time. Mostly I work at the community center now. It's more stable. Claire leaned against the doorframe, keeping physical distance if not emotional. You're still chasing stories around the world? Was. Something flickered across Olivia's face. For a long time, yes. But I'm back now. Permanently. Why? The question escaped more bluntly than she intended. 9 years of wondering burned away any finesse. Olivia sat on the edge of the bed, fingers laced. My mom got sick. Cancer. I came back to help with treatment and... She glanced toward the rain-slicked window. I realized I was tired of running. Something shifted in Claire's chest. Not forgiveness, just a hairline crack in the wall she'd constructed. Is she okay? Claire asked quietly. Your mom. In remission. Olivia's smile was soft. Stubborn as ever. Keeps asking when I'm going to settle down and give her grandchildren. The word pulled Mason sharply back into focus. About Mason, Claire said, voice firming. If this works out, you need to understand, he comes first. Always. Of course. Olivia's response was immediate, sincere. I wouldn't expect anything else. He's been through a lot. Claire's mouth shut on any mention of David, the divorce, the long reconstruction. Olivia didn't deserve the story of how thoroughly someone else had finished what she'd started. I get it, Olivia said quietly. I'm not looking to blow up anyone's life. I just need somewhere to land while I figure out what comes next. They moved to the kitchen. Claire made coffee with hands that only shook a little while Olivia sat at the tiny table where Claire and Mason usually ate side by side. The rent includes utilities, Claire said, clinging to logistics. Shared kitchen, obviously. Living rooms communal, but Mason and I usually have movie night there on Fridays. I can make myself scarce on Fridays, Olivia offered. You don't have to. The words slipped out before Claire could stop them. I mean, it's your home too if this works. Olivia wrapped her fingers around the mug. Steam rose between them. "Can I ask you something?" she said. Claire stiffened. "Go ahead. Are you happy?" The question hit harder than any accusation. Tears threatened, surprising her. "That's not relevant," Claire said carefully, "to this arrangement. Isn't it?" Olivia's voice stayed gentle. "We're talking about sharing a home. Being in each other's lives again. Even if it's just as landlord and tenant. I need to know I won't make things harder for you." Claire watched cream curl into her coffee. "I'm content," she said finally. "Mason and I have a good life. Quiet but good. That's not the same as happy. It's enough." Olivia studied her for a long moment, filing the answer away with the same attentiveness that had made her a good photographer. "I can pay first and last month up front," she said, shifting back to business. "I have references, some international. I'm clean, quiet, and gone enough that I won't always be underfoot." Claire searched her face for the girl who had once walked away with no explanation. All she saw was a woman who looked tired, a little lost, and very much in need of a place to stop running. "Why my ad?" Claire asked. "There are hundreds in Portland." Olivia hesitated. The phrase family-friendly environment caught my eye. My mom always said a house wasn't a home unless it had love in it. She met Claire's gaze. "I could tell from your listing that this place has love." Claire's throat tightened. "Mason wakes up early on weekends," she warned. "He's not always quiet about it. I'm an early riser. He asks a lot of questions. About everything. I like curious kids. He's protective. If he thinks someone's going to hurt me, he can get intense." Olivia's expression sobered. "I would never hurt you, Claire. Not again." The words hung between them, weighted with years. Claire wanted to believe them. She couldn't afford to. "I need to think about it," she said at last. "This is complicated." "I know." Olivia rose, collecting her bag. "Take all the time you need. I'm at a hotel downtown for now." Claire walked her to the door, painfully aware of how narrow the hallway felt with Olivia in it. At the threshold, Olivia turned back. "For what it's worth," she said softly, "I never stopped thinking about you. Or how I left things." Before Claire could respond, she was gone, moving down the wet steps and into the rain, leaving Claire in the doorway, heart-pounding, world listing to one side. Claire closed the door and slid down against it until she was sitting on the floor, knees pulled to her chest. 9 years of learning to live without Olivia Hart. 9 years of patching herself together. Of building a life that didn't rely on anyone else. She'd sworn never to invite that particular brand of chaos into her world again. But as she sat alone in the quiet house, one truth pressed hardest of all. For the first time in years, she felt completely, painfully awake. She didn't sleep. By 3 in the morning, she'd recalculated her budget 17 different ways. The numbers refused to change. She needed the rent. When Mason barreled into her room at 6:30, full of leftover sleepover energy and questions about Aunt Sarah's pancakes, Claire felt hollow. "Mom, you look tired," he announced, climbing onto the bed. "Did you stay up working?" "Something like that." She pulled him close, breathing in strawberry shampoo. "How was Aunt Sarah's?" "Good. We made pancakes and watched that movie about the dogs." He paused. "She said you were meeting someone about the room." Claire's stomach clenched. "I was. Are they nice? Do they like kids?" How could she possibly explain Olivia? "I'm still deciding," she said. Mason studied her face with unsettling intensity. "Are you worried about something?" Sometimes she forgot how closely he watched her, how attuned he'd become to the smallest shifts in her mood since David left. It broke her heart and steadied her at the same time. "Just normal mom worries," she said lightly, tickling him until he shrieked with laughter. "Nothing for you to think about." But worry clung to her through cereal and backpacks and the drive to school. Olivia's question kept looping in her mind. "Are you happy?" At the community center drop-off, Claire should have turned toward work. Instead, she found herself driving without destination through gray Portland streets until she pulled into Laurelhurst Park. She stayed in the car, watching dog walkers and joggers move through the drizzle. She and Olivia had once spent Sunday mornings here, sharing coffee from a thermos, talking about the future like they'd already booked it. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "How'd the tenant meeting go?" Call me. Instead, Claire scrolled to a number she hadn't dialed in 2 years. Claire, what a nice surprise, said Dar. Rebecca-chan, the therapist who'd shepherded her through the worst of the divorce. How are you and Mason doing? We're okay, Claire said. Mostly. I was wondering if you had any openings this week. I have a situation. Thursday at 2 p.m.? Dr. Chun offered. Thursday felt too far away. Could I ask you something now? Hypothetically. A soft chuckle. Hypothetically, of course. If someone from your past, someone who hurt you, showed up again, and you had to decide whether to let them back into your life, how would you choose? That's a large hypothetical, Dar. Chun said. Tell me more. Words spilled out. The bills, the Craigslist ad, Olivia on the doorstep, the tangled history. Dr. Chun listened, interjecting only to clarify. It sounds like two decisions, she said finally. One practical, do you rent out the room to this person? One emotional, do you let her back into your life in any other capacity? But they're not separate. Claire stared at the rain on the windshield. She'd be in my house. With my son. What if you treated it as strictly a business arrangement? Dr. Chun suggested. Clear boundaries, written lease, well-defined expectations. You can still decide separately what emotional access you allow. You think I should say yes? I think you should do what's right for you and Mason, Dr. Chun said. But Claire, may I ask you something? Sure. In all the time we worked together, you spoke a lot about wanting a safe life. A stable life. Dr. Chun paused. You never once mentioned wanting a joyful life. The words landed like a physical blow. Joy feels dangerous, Claire said. It can be, Dr. Chun agreed. But so can staying closed off forever. After they hung up, Claire sat a long time, watching the park slowly fill with life. Finally, she opened her phone and typed a message to Olivia. If you're still interested, the room is yours. First and last month's rent, 1-year lease. Move in this weekend. We'll need to talk ground rules. The reply came almost immediately. Thank you, Claire. I won't let you down. Claire stared at the words, heart thudding. Best or worst decision of her life, she had no idea. But as she drove home to call the aftercare program and arrange a late pickup for Mason, she noticed something startling. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she was moving forward, not just staying afloat. That night over dinner, she brought it up carefully. Remember how we talked about a roommate to help with expenses? She asked. Mason nodded solemnly over his mac and cheese. I found someone, Claire said. Her name is Olivia. She's a photographer. She'll move into the spare room this weekend. Is she nice? Mason asked. Claire thought of a rain-damp figure on the porch, green eyes full of history. She's complicated, Claire said. But yes, I think she's nice. Will she eat dinner with us? Sometimes, maybe. We'll see. Mason twirled his fork, considering. Mom. Yeah, baby. Are you nervous? She met his gaze and for once opted against a deflection. A little, she admitted. It's okay to be nervous, Mason said matter-of-factly. When I started 3rd grade I was nervous. But Mrs. Patterson turned out really nice. Claire smiled, her chest full and aching. You're pretty smart, you know that? I get it from you. He grinned. Hope stirred, fragile but present. Later, when he was asleep, Claire drafted a lease. Rent, shared spaces, quiet hours, expectations. It read clean, unemotional, airtight. But when she closed the laptop, what lingered wasn't the document. It was the memory of Olivia's voice in the hallway. I never stopped thinking about you. In 3 days, Olivia Hart would live under her roof. Claire had no idea what she had just set in motion. But the future no longer looked like an endless stretch of the same gray days. Saturday arrived cool and drizzly, the sky a solid sheet of Oregon gray that matched Claire's nerves. For 2 days she'd toggled between furious cleaning and half-hearted explanations to Mason. She's someone I knew a long time ago, she'd said. Like from college, he'd asked. Yeah, like that. Now, as a small moving truck pulled up to the curb, Mason pressed his face to the living room window. She's here, he crowed. Mom, she doesn't have very much stuff. From the kitchen, Claire watched Olivia step out of the truck. Jeans, rain jacket, hair in a ponytail. Even from a distance, Claire could see the careful, almost tentative way she moved. The doorbell rang. Mason sprinted down the hall. "Mason, wait," Claire called, but he was already wrenching the door open. "Hi, I'm Mason," he announced. "Are you Olivia? Mom said you're a photographer. Do you take pictures of dinosaurs?" By the time Claire reached the doorway, Olivia was crouched to Mason's level, smiling. "I'm Olivia," she said. "It's very nice to meet you, Mason. I don't usually take pictures of dinosaurs, but I'd love to see some if you have them." "I have tons," he said eagerly. "Books and models. I'm reading about velociraptors. They were actually really small. Not like in the movies." "I did not know that." Olivia's eyes widened, her tone serious. "You'll have to teach me." Claire watched, surprised by the easy connection. She'd forgotten how good Olivia was with people, how she made even an 8-year-old feel like the most interesting person in the room. "Mason, let's let Olivia bring her things in," Claire said gently. "You can show her dinosaurs later." "Right. Saudi." He bounced back. "Do you need help?" "That would be great if it's okay with your mom," Olivia said, glancing at Claire. The next 2 hours blurred into a circuit of boxes and furniture. Olivia's life fit into fewer containers than Claire expected. Camera gear, a second-hand dresser, a couple of book boxes, clothes, a worn armchair. Mason appointed himself moving supervisor, narrating everything from his school's cafeteria rules to in-depth T-Rex facts. Olivia listened, genuinely engaged, asking follow-up questions that made him light up. "She's really nice," Mason whispered to Claire during one of Olivia's trips outside. "And she knows about cameras. She said she might teach me to take pictures." Panic flickered. "Honey, remember what we talked about?" Claire said softly. "Olivia is our roommate, not our friend. We need to give her space." Mason's eager face fell a little, but she could already see him forming attachments. He gave his heart fast and completely to anyone who showed him kindness. It was one of his best and scariest traits. By noon, the spare room held Olivia's bed, desk, and an organized sprawl of boxes. The house felt changed. Not crowded exactly, but humming. "I made sandwiches," Claire called, knocking on Olivia's door. "If you're hungry." "That's incredibly thoughtful." "Thank you," Olivia replied, stepping into the kitchen a moment later. They gathered around the small table, 3 instead of 2. Mason dominated the conversation, offering Olivia a complete biography. His school, his best friend Jake, Jake's hamster, Mrs. Patterson's sticker chart. "What about you?" Olivia asked Claire when Mason paused for breath. "Still doing graphic design?" "Part-time," Claire said. "Mostly I work at the community center now. Program coordination volunteers. It's good work." "She helps people," Mason put in proudly. "She organized a food drive and we got like 1,000,000 cans. 237, Claire corrected, smiling. "That's amazing," Olivia said, and Claire could tell she meant it. "You always wanted to do work that mattered." The comment skimmed old conversations about meaning and purpose. Claire felt suddenly exposed. "What about you?" she asked quickly. "Any big projects?" "I'm assembling a portfolio for a gallery show. Local artists, theme of home and belonging. Personal stuff." "That sounds cool," Mason said. "Can we see your pictures?" Olivia glanced at Claire. "If your mom says it's okay." Claire nodded and Olivia retrieved her laptop. The photographs were stunning. Intimate portraits of families at kitchen tables, elderly couples on stoops, kids chasing each other through community gardens. Technically brilliant, yes, but more than that, they held something raw and tender, the quiet weight of connection. "This one's my favorite," Olivia said, stopping on an image of an elderly woman teaching a girl to braid bread. 3 generations baking together in a tiny Italian town. Claire found herself staring, not just at the photograph, but at the woman beside her. This was not the work of someone running from attachment. This was someone who chased it everywhere she went. "They're beautiful," Claire said softly. "Really beautiful," Mason echoed. "Mom, look at this one with the dogs." After a while, Claire forced herself up. "We should let Olivia unpack," she said lightly. "Mason, come help me with laundry?" As they left the kitchen, Claire's phone buzzed. "David." "Hi, David," she answered in the living room. "Claire." Hey. His tone was brisk. I was wondering if I could take Mason next weekend. Short notice, I know, but Jennifer's parents are in town. They'd love to meet him. Claire glanced toward the kitchen, where she could hear Mason still peppering Olivia with questions. Let me check with him and get back to you, she said. Everything okay? You sound stressed, he added. She almost barked a laugh. If he only knew. Just busy, she said. We're fine. After hanging up, she walked back toward the kitchen and stopped in the doorway unseen. Mason and Olivia sat side by side at the table, heads bent over a dinosaur book. Mason was explaining the difference between herbivores and carnivores with grave seriousness. Olivia listened like she'd flown across the world just for this lesson. Exactly what Claire had feared. Exactly what felt strangely right. That night, with Mason asleep, Claire found Olivia in the kitchen rinsing dinner plates. Thank you, Olivia said quietly, for letting me move in. I know it can't be easy. Claire folded a dish towel, edges aligning perfectly. We need to set some boundaries. Of course. Mason gets attached easily, Claire said. His dad isn't consistent. I need to know you won't make promises you can't keep. Olivia's face sobered. I would never hurt him, Claire. You said you'd never hurt me either. The words landed harder than she'd intended, but she didn't retract them. Olivia flinched. You're right. I did hurt you. Badly. And I've regretted it every day for 9 years. Regret doesn't undo damage. No, Olivia leaned back against the counter, arms crossing. But maybe it can be a starting point. Questions crowded Claire's tongue. Why did you leave? Why didn't you call? But she swallowed them. That path seemed too dangerous while they were sharing walls. I'm going to bed, she said instead. Good night, Olivia. Good night, Claire. In bed, listening to the soft creak of floorboards as Olivia moved around the room next door, Claire braced herself for sleeplessness. For the first time in years, she wasn't the only adult in the house after Mason fell asleep. It should have felt like an intrusion. Instead, it felt disconcertingly like home. 2 weeks into their new arrangement, Claire was startled to realize how smoothly domestic life with Olivia had settled into a rhythm. Olivia kept her promise to be respectful. She washed dishes without being asked, restocked toilet paper, and seemed to instinctively disappear when Claire and Mason needed family time. Yet she was present in small, startling ways. On Tuesday at 6 a.m., Claire stumbled into the kitchen to find coffee already made and a plate of toast waiting. On Thursday, she came home from a brutal day at the community center to discover Olivia had picked Mason up from aftercare and was helping him with multiplication at the table. She's really good at math, Mason reported cheerfully over dinner. Better than you, Mom. No offense. None taken, Claire said, half laughing, half stung. Fridays became their weeded-out version of an almost family ritual. Olivia never intruded on movie night, but she was often in the kitchen making tea when the credits rolled, and Mason inevitably bounced in to deliver exhaustive plot summaries. We watched The Princess Bride, he announced one Friday, bursting in while Olivia edited photos on her laptop. It has sword fighting and true love and a guy who keeps saying inconceivable. A classic, Olivia said, eyes crinkling. Did you like it? It was awesome. Mom cried at the end. But she always cries at movies. I do not always cry, Claire protested, leaning on the doorway. You cried at Finding Nemo and Toy Story, and that one about the dog. Okay, yes, I'm emotionally invested in fictional characters. Claire shot Olivia a mock glare. There's nothing wrong with feeling things deeply, Olivia said quietly. Their eyes met. For one suspended heartbeat, the air between them hummed with everything unsaid. Then Mason barreled on about fencing scenes, and the moment slid away. The photography lessons began almost accidentally. Mason was fascinated by Olivia's gear from day one, and one Saturday morning Claire found them in the backyard, camera in Mason's hands, both entirely absorbed. Look, Mom. Mason ran over, thrusting the camera at her. Olivia taught me about focusing. Look at this bee picture. On the screen, a bee hovered in sharp detail against a haze of lavender. That's incredible, Claire said honestly. Olivia says I have a good eye. She's going to teach me composition next week. You don't have to do that, Claire said to Olivia, who was carefully winding a camera strap. I know you're busy. I like it, Olivia said. He really is a natural. And it's fun, teaching someone who's excited. It hit Claire unexpectedly, the sight of someone feeding Mason's curiosity simply because they wanted to, not out of obligation. David called sporadically. Sarah helped when she could. But no one had joined their lives this wholly in a long time. That evening after Mason was asleep, Claire found Olivia at the kitchen table uploading images. You really don't need to put so much time into this, Claire said, sitting across from her. You have your own work. I want to, Olivia said. Look. She turned the laptop toward Claire. A folder labeled Mason Portfolio, open to a series of photos, their backyard rendered through Mason's eyes. Light streaming through maple leaves, spiderwebs jeweled with dew. A squirrel mid-raid at the bird feeder. Claire hunched over the garden in an unguarded moment. These are beautiful, Claire murmured. He notices everything. He sees the world like an artist, Olivia agreed. That's rare. His father thinks photography's a waste of time, Claire said before she could stop herself. Says Mason should focus on practical skills. David's missing out, Olivia replied lightly. On knowing a really amazing kid. The ease with which she said David's name made Claire realize how much she'd shared lately. About Mason, about the divorce. About the 1,000 tiny struggles of single parenthood. Can I ask you something? Olivia said, closing the laptop. Claire braced. Okay. Why did you and David divorce? The question was simple. The answer was not. But Claire found herself speaking anyway. He wanted a different life, she said. More money. Bigger house. A wife who didn't work at a nonprofit. She traced a circle on the table with her fingertip. He met Jennifer at his firm. She's everything I'm not. Polished. Ambitious. Uncomplicated. Uncomplicated sounds boring, Olivia said bluntly. Claire looked up startled. I'm serious. Olivia held her gaze. You were never uncomplicated, Claire. That was one of the things she stopped swallowing. Loved hung there unsaid. That was a long time ago, Claire said quietly. Was it? Olivia's voice was almost a whisper. Because sitting here talking about Mason and art and life, it doesn't feel like a long time ago. Claire's pulse picked up. This was precisely the territory she'd been trying to avoid. Olivia. I know, Olivia said quickly. I know it's complicated. I know I don't have the right to say any of this. She dragged a hand through her hair, a gesture Claire remembered intimately. But I can't pretend being here, being in your life again, doesn't mean everything to me. You left, Claire said, the words ripping out before she could soften them. You packed your cameras and you left. No explanation. No phone call. Nothing. I know. Do you? Her control broke. Do you know what that did to me? I was 27. I thought we were going to spend our lives together. I'd picked out wedding venues. I had names for our kids, Olivia. Tears spilled down Claire's cheeks, 9 years worth breaking loose. I know, Olivia whispered, her own eyes wet. And I am so sorry, Claire. Sorry doesn't tell me why. Silence stretched. Finally, Olivia spoke, voice thin. I was terrified, she said. We were talking about marriage and kids and forever. And I looked at my parents, resentful, stuck, barely speaking, and I panicked. I thought if I stayed, I'd end up like them. And I'd drag you down with me. So you decided for both of us. Yes. Olivia's voice cracked. And it was the worst mistake I've ever made. I waited, Claire said. For months. I thought you'd realize and come back. Or at least call. I wanted to. Olivia's hands clenched on the table. Every day. But I'd hurt you so badly. And I convinced myself you'd be better off without me. That wasn't your choice to make. No, Olivia said. It wasn't. The silence that followed was thick with all they hadn't said for nearly a decade. Finally, Claire stood, shaky. I need to sleep, she said. This is too much. Claire, wait. I can't do this, Claire cut in, one hand on the doorway. I can't unpack our past while you're living here and bonding with my son. It's not fair to any of us. You're right, Olivia said quietly. I'm sorry. I'll keep things professional. Claire nodded and fled to her room. closing the door with more force than necessary. She sank onto the bed, heart hammering. She'd known this would be messy. She hadn't realized how quickly her defenses would start to crumble, or how terrifying it would feel to be falling for Olivia all over again. The next few days were polite, careful. Olivia stuck to her word. She was kind but distant, helpful but not intimate. She still made coffee, still helped Mason with math, but the easy warmth between her and Claire cooled into something more formal. Mason picked up on it immediately. "Is Olivia mad at us?" he asked over breakfast Wednesday. "No, sweetheart. Of course not." Claire forced a smile. "Why?" "She's quieter," he said. "And she didn't want to see my field trip pictures yesterday. She's probably just busy." But Claire knew he was right. Olivia was retreating into her room more, venturing less into the shared spaces. Exactly what Claire had said she wanted. Felt wrong. On Thursday evening, while Claire chopped vegetables for dinner, her phone rang. "David." David. "Claire, we need to talk about Mason." Something in his tone made her grip the counter harder. "What about Mason?" "Jennifer and I have been thinking about our future," he said. "We think it might be time for him to spend more time with us. Maybe even revisit custody." Cold flooded Claire's veins. "What are you talking about?" "He's getting older. He needs stability. Structure. A two-parent household." "He has stability," Claire snapped. "He has structure. He has a home." "In a house where you're renting rooms to strangers?" David asked. "Come on, Claire. You're barely scraping by, and now you're bringing unknown people around my son." "Olivia isn't a stranger," Claire said, trying to keep her voice even. "And she's been wonderful with Mason." "Olivia Hart," David said. "Your college girlfriend. The one who broke your heart and sent you to therapy." Claire closed her eyes. She'd forgotten she'd ever told him. "That was a long time ago," she said. "Was it?" His voice sharpened. "Because from here it looks like you're using our son's home as a second-chance romance set. You have a pattern, Claire. Emotional decisions that put your needs ahead of Mason's. That isn't fair. The community center job that pays half what you could make elsewhere. The house in a neighborhood you can barely afford. And now this. You're so desperate to prove you don't need help that you're not seeing how your choices affect him." Rage and fear spiked together. "Mason is happy," Claire said. "He's thriving." "He's 8, David said. "He doesn't know what's best for him. That's our job. I'm his primary parent. You see him twice a month." "That can change," David said. And this time it wasn't a threat so much as a promise. "You can't be serious." "I'm very serious." Papers rustled in the background. "Jennifer and I can offer Mason better schools, college savings, 2 engaged parents. A real family. We are a real family. Be honest with yourself. You're struggling, and now you've complicated things by moving your ex-girlfriend in. How is that in Mason's best interest?" Claire wanted to scream, to list every late-night fever and school conference she'd handled alone, but his barbs had hit their marks. She was struggling. She had brought Olivia into the house for reasons she couldn't label as purely practical. "I need to think," she said finally. "Take your time," David said. "But I'm not dropping this. Mason deserves better." He hung up. "Mom." Claire turned. Mason stood in the doorway, worry creasing his small face. "Are you okay? You look mad. Or sad. Or both." She crammed her phone into her pocket. "I'm fine, baby. Just a work call." "Was it Dad?" he asked quietly. She hesitated, then nodded. "He wants to see you more often." "Do I have to?" The question broke something in her. "We'll figure it out," she said, pulling him into a hug. "You don't need to worry about that." But she knew he would. He'd learned too early that grown ups could make choices that uprooted his whole world. That night, after Mason was in bed, Claire paced the living room, David's words looping in her head. Was he right? Was she selfish? Had she put her own complicated, unresolved feelings ahead of Mason's best interests? "You've been pacing for 20 minutes, Olivia said gently from the doorway. "Are you okay?" Claire stopped, startled. "I'm fine." "You're not," Olivia said quietly. "And Mason was upset at dinner." Claire sank onto the couch, exhaustion washing over her. David wants to change our custody arrangement. Olivia's expression hardened. What? He thinks Mason would be better off with him and Jennifer. More money. More structure. A real family. Claire laughed bitterly. Apparently I make emotional decisions that put my needs first. That's absurd, Olivia said. Anyone can see how much you love Mason. How good you are with him. But am I? Claire whispered. I am struggling. I did move you in here for complicated reasons. Maybe Mason would be better off. Stop, Olivia said, sitting beside her. Don't let him rewrite your reality. You are an incredible mother. Mason is who he is because of you. The money? That's solvable. It doesn't make you less of a parent. And you? Claire asked, voice cracking. I brought you into this. Mason's already attached. David's using that against me. What if I can't protect him? From you, from all of this? Olivia was quiet a beat. When she spoke, her voice was steady. Claire, listen to me, she said. I'm not going anywhere. Not unless you ask me to leave. I know I hurt you before. I know you have every reason to doubt me. But I'm not the same person who ran away 9 years ago. How can I know that? Claire asked. How can I risk Mason's heart on a promise? Some things are worth the risk, Olivia said softly. And I've spent 9 years learning that running from love doesn't make you safe. It just makes you lonely. Footsteps creaked on the stairs. I can't sleep. Mason stood in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. I keep thinking about Dad's call. Claire's heart clenched. Sweetheart, you were supposed to be in bed. I heard you talking. Are you and Dad fighting about me? She swallowed, then patted the cushion. Come here. He climbed between them. Claire wrapped one arm around him. Olivia shifted to make room. Your dad and I have different ideas about what's best for you, Claire said carefully. But that's not your job to fix. That's grown-up stuff. What if he makes me live with him and Jennifer? Mason's lower lip trembled. I don't want to leave our house. I don't want to leave you. Claire blinked back tears. That's not going to happen, she said. I won't let it. But what if? Hey, Olivia cut in gently. Can I tell you something? Mason nodded, eyes big. Sometimes adults get scared and say things without thinking them through, Olivia said. Your dad loves you, and he wants good things for you. Your mom loves you, and she's been taking care of you every day since you were born. That kind of love doesn't disappear because someone has a different idea. But what if the judge says I have to go? Mason whispered. Then, Olivia said firmly, your mom will fight for you. Because that's what people do when they love someone. They fight for them. And you won't be alone in that fight. Mason looked at her carefully. Will you help Mom fight for me? Claire's breath caught. If your mom will let me, Olivia said, holding Claire's gaze. I'll help however I can. Something eased just a fraction in Claire's chest. Okay, Mason said, apparently reassured. Can I sleep in your bed tonight, Mom? Just in case. Of course, Claire said. As they headed upstairs, Olivia's hand brushed Claire's arm. I meant what I said, she murmured. I'll fight for you. Both of you. For the first time since David's call, Claire felt like maybe she didn't have to face everything alone. That night, with Mason curled against her and the muted sounds of Olivia moving in the next room, Claire stared at the ceiling and made a choice. She would not let David define her as selfish. She was building a life for herself and her son that contained not just safety, but the possibility of joy. If that meant taking risks on a custody battle on Olivia, then maybe it was time to be brave. The custody mediation was scheduled for the following Friday. 1 week. Monday morning at the community center, Claire sorted donation forms on autopilot, her mind running through imaginary courtroom scenes. Every buzz of her phone made her flinch, expecting David's lawyer. Instead, picked up Mason from school. He's helping with a photo project. Don't worry about dinner, I've got it. Oh, a smile tugged at her mouth before she could stop it. Since their late-night conversation, Olivia had quietly stepped in, researching family law attorneys, brainstorming documentation, folding seamlessly into their routines in ways that made the house feel fuller, safer. That evening, Claire pulled into the driveway to find the backyard transformed. Mason's dinosaur figures populated a miniature prehistoric landscape made from houseplants, rocks, and creatively rated pantry items. "Mom, look," Mason called. "Olivia's teaching me storytelling with pictures." Claire crossed the damp grass, genuinely impressed. It looked like a museum diorama. "This is incredible," she said. "What's it for?" "The school art show," Mason said, vibrating with excitement. "We can submit photos this year." "He came up with the idea," Olivia said, adjusting the camera on a tripod. "I'm just the lighting assistant." Claire watched Olivia guide Mason's hands as he framed shots, translating composition principles into kid language. Something in her chest went soft. Later, in the kitchen, Olivia pulled up a folder labeled Mason Portfolio. The images were better than good. They were observant, thoughtful, strangely moving. In them, Claire saw her son's world. Closipes of flower petals turned into wild color fields, portraits of neighbor cat Smitstock, candid shots of Claire herself unaware, hands in the dirt or laughing at something out of frame. "These are beautiful," she said. "He has an eye I can't teach," Olivia said. "I just show him how to use the tools." That night, as they washed dishes together, Claire said, "Thank you for everything you're doing with him. The photography, the pickups, the all of it." "You don't have to thank me," Olivia said. "I love spending time with him. But you should know, this stopped being about rent a while ago." Claire's heart stuttered. "What do you mean?" "I mean what's happening here between you, me, and Mason. It's more than a housing arrangement." Olivia turned off the tap and faced her. "I'm not just your tenant, Claire. Not in my heart." Claire took a breath that felt too shallow. "David was right about one thing," she said quietly. "I didn't bring you into our lives just because we needed the income. That was part of it. But not all." "What was the rest?" Olivia asked, barely above a whisper. "Because even after 9 years," Claire forced herself to meet her eyes, "you still feel like home to me. And that terrifies me. But it's also the truest thing I've felt in a long time." Emotion flashed across Olivia's face. Shock, hope, something like relief. Before she could answer, Claire's phone rang. Her lawyer's name lit the screen. "I have to take this," Claire said, retreating to the living room. "Claire, it's Janet," came the brisk, reassuring voice. "Update on custody." Claire's stomach dropped. "Go on." "David's attorney called," Janet said. "They're backing off the custody challenge. Sounds like they did their homework and realized a stable home with extended support." Her tone made it clear who she meant. "Will look very good to a mediator. Particularly compared to uprooting Mason from school and routine. So we go into mediation pushing for increased visitation for David rather than any change in primary custody. From where I'm standing, that's a strong position." Relief crashed over Claire so hard her knees went weak. "Thank you," she managed. After she hung up, she stood a moment, letting her breathing even out, before returning to the kitchen. "Good news?" Olivia asked tentatively. "Better than I dared hope," Claire said, sliding into a chair. "David's backing off full custody. We'll probably just negotiate more visitation." "That's amazing," Olivia said, genuine joy lighting her face. "It is." Claire swallowed. "And part of the reason is you. My lawyer basically said having a stable support system, a roommate who helps with child care, who's involved in his interests, makes our home look even more solid." Olivia's eyes softened. She corrected gently. "Our home." Claire looked at their joined lives, the photographs on the fridge, Mason's backpack by the door, Olivia's camera bag in the corner, and felt something inside her unknot. "You asked if this was a family," she said. "I don't know what else to call it." Olivia reached across the table and took her hand. Her fingers were callous from years gripping cameras. Claire's were rough from gardening and dish soap.
"I'm scared," Claire confessed.
"Of trusting you. Of letting Mason love you more than he already does. Of believing this time will be different." "May I tell you the whole truth?" Olivia asked. Claire nodded. "My mom's cancer brought me back to Portland," Olivia said. "But it wasn't the only reason. I've spent 9 years going everywhere and nowhere. New cities, new people, new stories. Nothing ever stuck. Nothing ever felt real." She took a breath. "And now," she continued, Now I wake up, make coffee for the woman I never stopped loving, help her brilliant kid with his art project, and argue with both of them about which movie to watch. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Tears slid down Claire's cheeks. I don't deserve a second chance, Olivia said quietly. I hurt you badly. I know trust isn't a switch you flip. But Claire, if you'll let me, I want to spend the rest of my life proving I won't run again. That this is real. That it's forever. And that it's worth every bit of fear. Claire looked at her, really looked. At the woman who had shattered her once and still somehow held half her heart. She thought of Mason upstairs, likely dreaming in color about dinosaurs and photographs. Of the home they'd built. Imperfect but full of love. Of how easily Olivia had slipped into the shape of their days. Okay, she said softly. Olivia blinked. Okay. Let's try, Claire said. Carefully. Honestly. Let's see what happens if we stop being afraid all the time. A smile broke across Olivia's face, bright and unguarded. Really, she whispered. Really? But if you hurt Mason, Claire's voice sharpened. If you hurt either of us, I won't, Olivia said fiercely. I swear. Claire believed her. Maybe that was foolish. Maybe it was brave. Maybe it was both. What she knew, sitting there with Olivia's hand in hers and her son safe upstairs, was that for the first time in years, she felt not just content. She felt happy. The mediation on Friday played out exactly as Janet predicted. David's attorney proposed a revised visitation schedule. More school breaks with David and Jennifer, same primary custody for Claire. Claire, thinking of Mason's earnest face and Olivia's steady presence, agreed. Outside the courthouse, Olivia waited with 2 coffees. You look relieved, she said as Claire joined her on the steps. I am, Claire said, exhaling some of the tension she'd been holding for a week. Mason stays home. David gets more time, which will be good for them both. And we move forward. What happens now? Olivia asked. Claire considered the question. Now we go get Mason from school, she said. Help him finish his photography project. Figure out what life looks like when we're not just surviving. I like the sound of that. Driving through familiar Portland streets. Claire watched rain streak the windshield and felt something settle in her bones. A rightness she hadn't allowed herself to hope for. She glanced at Olivia in the passenger seat, watching the city go by with that soft half-smile, and had the quiet, startling realization that sometimes the best things in life took the longest route home. That evening, the 3 of them sat around the kitchen table surrounded by photographs. They sorted through Mason's favorite shots, choosing his entry for the school art show. This one, Mason insisted, pointing to a picture of the feather-covered dinosaur diorama, dramatically lit. It tells a story. It does, Olivia agreed. What story do you want people to see? That even things that are gone forever can still be remembered, Mason said promptly. Claire and Olivia shared a quick, stunned look. Mom, Mason asked suddenly, glancing between them. Are you and Olivia going to get married? Claire nearly inhaled her coffee. Mason, you look at each other like they do in movies, he said. Before they get married. Olivia laughed, cheeks pink. Your mom and I are still figuring things out, buddy. But you love each other, right? He persisted. CLA.